Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Dude, I Love That. I'm Liv, and today we're continuing the Summer Throwback Enneagram series with movies that capture the heart of every 90s girl, Princess Diaries. And we're doing the love interest also from the first one and the second one to kind of loop everything together. So it's going to be a fun one. Buckle up. Let's dive in. So we can't start this whole thing off without, of course, talking about Mia. And she was one that I actually had heard people kind of throwing her type around before. And everyone was saying that she was either a 9 or a 6. Now, after just freshly watching these movies for you, because you know I always rewatch everything I talk about so that I can get fresh perspectives and examples for you. So I was watching everything and through really seeing how she deals with situations, seeing how her relationships are, what the basis, I guess, is that she wants in relationships and friendships. She really is a type 6, and I think that she's a self-preserving 6 in the first movie. I think that's really the instinct that she's leaning on. And then in the second movie, I think we see a lot of growth with her, so it's going to be really fun to get into the nitty-gritty. So like I said, first movie, she's very unsure of herself. She's very doubting. She has kind of low self-esteem, but also not really. I guess she feels low self-esteem in group settings, but in and of herself, she doesn't, if that makes sense. And she does have really close friends. She's got like her core group, and those are her people. She really says multiple times throughout the movie, her expectation in life is to just be invisible. She doesn't want problems. She wants to just float away. And that's where I feel like people would get tripped up about, is she a 9? And I definitely see a lot of 9 with her, but remember, 6 and 9 have a connection to one another. And so when 6s are in health and they're doing well, they actually go to 9. However, as I've talked about previously, the really interesting thing here is when you are in prolonged stress, like a school situation that stresses you out, right? With what we see with her, and you're in that place, you actually go to the low side of your health number. And so in her case, she's taking on a little bit of that sloth-like tendency from the type 9, and she's kind of sitting in that. And that's where we get her being like, I'm just complacent. I don't want to have any problems. I just want to fade away. I just want peace. And we can see that that's really what she's after. However, we can see as she gets more and more confident, as she feels more secure in her role and her place and identity, she starts to feel more like a 6. She's very much the kind of person that is wanting to test friendships and see, like, are you legit? Or even maybe not so much friendships, but people. We see her do that a lot in the second movie with Lord Nicholas. And he is one that she keeps kind of prodding at, like, what is your deal? What's going on here? I don't think I can trust you because you came across one way and now you're like this. So what's going on? And of course, with every 6 I've ever talked about, that's something that we tend to see them do. And Mia really does come across very anxious and fearful and kind of expects the worst a lot in that first movie. But again, as I said, we see her go through a really big growth spurt, I guess you could call it, in her personality by the time we get to the second movie. She's really come into this idea that she has a purpose that's been laid out for her, and she's excited to go into it and really fulfill that role. And so we see her become more confident. She's more sure of herself. And I think because of all the information she's gathered, because of the support system she has, she feels very much like, I can do this and I'm ready for it and I'm excited about it. And I think we see a little bit of, maybe she was leaning more on her 5 wing in the first movie. And so that's where a little bit of that, I want to hide away, I kind of want to stay in my castle mentality came from. Whereas in the second movie, she really does start to lean on that 7 wing. She's making more jokes with people, especially strangers. She's able to put on a happy front even when she's struggling, and she's able to be a little bit more spontaneous than what we see in the first movie, which of course shows really good usage of both of your wings because, again, like bird wings, right? You have to use both to stay balanced. And so it's good to really utilize both your wings in different situations to keep you balanced and level. Now, I will say, part of me wonders that in the second movie, if she's starting to use more of her one-to-one or sexual instinct versus the self-preserving instinct we see a lot in the first movie. I think her speech at the end of the first movie, she talks about how she was really self-focused, not out of a prideful kind of way or a self-obsessed way, but in a way of, I'm always fearful. I'm always wondering what's going to happen. And so I'm always worried about myself. Whereas she identifies it and she's like, That's not right. Especially if I want to fulfill this role of a leader, I have to be thinking about more than just me. I have to think of others. So I think she ends up becoming a little bit more one-to-one subtype or social subtype focused because of this new role she's really heading into. And so that's a really great example of why using your instincts, understanding them, and being able to switch off which one is prominent in different times in your life, because we need all of them. They're all important. And so it's about understanding what that looks like when you are using it and understanding how to implement that when needed. And so, again, that's really the growth that we see Mia go through. And it's so cool. If you're a 6, watch these movies again with the Enneagram in mind and see how she does that, because it can be hard to implement that in your own life when you don't see what it looks like. And so I know, like, I'm a big visual person and I learn by example. And so it was cool for me to watch this and be like, wow, look at her. Like, there are things that I can see that I do that she also did. And she had to kind of change it a little bit because of the role she was going into. And it's just cool to see stuff like that in pop culture. Oh, and really quickly, if you've never heard me talk about instincts, or you're like new to the Enneagram and going, what the heck is she talking about? Self-preservation, social, one-to-one, those are subtypes. What that is they're kind of a focus for you. I talk more about this in other episodes and really dive in. So check out the Outer Banks episode. That's a really good one. Check out, the Aquamarine episode. That one I also did for the Summer Throwback series. Really fun one that I talk about instincts in, and a lot of other episodes I hit on either instincts, aka subtypes, or tri-types. And that's one thing I want to hit on really quickly for Mia. So I think her tri-type is 692. And I chose that because I feel like she seems to exhibit a lot of that nineness. And I think she does want peace. And I think that's why she is the way that she is in the first movie and just sort of wants to fade away. And that's why, again, we were like, is she a 6 or is she a 9? And then I also think in the second movie, even as she's gone through all this self growth, she really does kind of cave to what's needed for her position and wants to have peace. She doesn't want any upset or anything like that. And so I think we see her more on that 9 where she's like, I've seen good examples before me. I just want to follow in that. And if it worked for them, it'll work for me. And that's something that you wouldn't see quite as much from a type 8 or a type 1, which she could have had from the gut triad. And if you're hearing me talk about tri-types and you're like, what are you talking about? Let me give you a super quick breakdown. So tri-types, there are 3 triads in the Enneagram. We've got the gut triad, which is 9s, 8s, and 1s. We've got the heart triad, which is 2s, 3s, and 4s. And then we've got the head triad, which is 5s, 6s, and 7s. And so what you do when figuring out your tri-type is go, okay, what is my core type? So for me, as an example, my core type is a type 6, which, like I just said, is located in the head triad. So next I go to the gut triad and I say, what type do I feel like I fit most with in this triad? And that for me is a type 8. And then in the heart triad, I identify most with a type 4. So then my tri-type is a 684. So that's what I did for Mia here. I was like, in the gut triad, I don't think she has an 8. I also don't think she has a 1. I really feel like she fits that type 9, like I just explained. And then in the heart triad, I feel like a lot of her decisions and her wanting to do what's right and helpful to people comes from her having that 2. I think that makes the most sense for her because she really does decide to lay down what she wants in order for others to succeed, thrive, whatever it is. And we see her do that both times, whether it's the first movie where she's still kind of like having a lot of the self-doubt and the anxiety and the fear, and in the second movie where she's moved more past that. And now she's in a place of, I'm ready to assume this position. I have to do what's best for other people. I have to lay down what I want and pick up what's best for everybody else. And so that's what you're going to see from that type 2. And of course, we can't talk about Mia without talking about Lily Moscovitz. Oh my gosh. Okay. One of my favorite lines Lily says, and it's actually going to be in today's post from the episode, so check it out, is when she's talking to Lord Nicholas and she's like, hi, Lily Moscovitz, official best friend of the princess. I don't like you. I just literally love that so much. She is everything I want to be when I grow up. I mean, really, she says whatever's on her mind. She's totally herself. I mean, do you see her hairstyles in the first movie? She's like, I don't give a rip. Like, I'm going to do me and you're going to like it. I mean, the fact that her radio show is, or I'm sorry, her cable show is called Shut Up and Listen. Does that not tell you everything you need to know? Lily is a type 8. And for me, I kind of kept going back and forth. Like, is she a 4? Is she an 8? And eventually I decided on 8 because I feel like she does have that aggressive, assertive stance. You know, remember, the aggressive and assertive types are threes, eights, and sevens. And so for her, everything she does is very forceful. She wants to make her mark on the world. That's really the focus of that first movie for her character is like, oh my gosh, maybe it's a protest. Oh my gosh, I want to save these. What was this spotted owl, I think? And so she's always doing something that really protects other people and brings awareness. And that's what you're going to see from the eight, because remember, they're the protector. They want to take the underdog or someone that can't fight for themselves, bring them under their wing, and they're the ones that are going to raise awareness, fight for them, etc. And she's not the kind of person that just says, oh, I care about this thing, and just like, basically gives a lip service and doesn't actually put actions behind her words. She really does. And that's what I always talk about with these type eights. They're so good at saying, hey, this is what I think, and then also following it up with action, because it's easy to talk about something. It takes more effort to actually show some action behind it. And so that's what we see from her. Every time she says something about friendship, it's always about like, hey, you're not being loyal or you're caving on authenticity. You can see eights really value authenticity. And, I know sometimes authenticity gets labeled as being like a type 4 characteristic, but I'm telling you, eights care about it so much. And you'll see a lot of times eights are the ones that are really prodding people to be more authentic. They're like, I can see that you're not being your true self. Come on, you can show up as who you are. It's actually something that my friend Liza talks about all the time. Like authenticity is her thing. And I love her for it because she's so good at living it out. And so that's what we see from Lily. Every time that she feels like, Mia, something's not right here, like you're either not being true to yourself or you're giving in so much to what other people want, she's quick to call her out on it and say, you need to be you. You're so cool as you are. And even though in the first movie, when she saw Mia for the first time after she had gone through her little Paolo transformation, her first thing was like, they wrecked you. And of course, she didn't necessarily mean you look terrible. What she's saying is they took away your uniqueness, your authenticity. And that's something that's very important for her. And so she felt like, well, crap, my best friend just gave away like her unique mark on the world. And so that's where she was able to call her out. And even though it was not in the nicest way and definitely could have been phrased differently, we can see her heart behind why she said it. And so that's where, again, it feels a lot more type 8 than type 4. The 4 is going to come from a very honest, genuine, heartfelt place. Whereas the 8, she comes like a bull in a china shop and is like, hey, what'd they do to you? Or you need to be yourself because I can see that you're trying to blah, blah, blah. And so that's what you're going to get from that 8 versus the 4. And I love Lily because she is the perfect balance to Mia. A lot of times 6s and 8s work out so well in a friendship because the 8 pushes the 6, whereas the 6 can get really down with fears and anxiety, and that can stop them from actually moving forward in the world. The 8 comes in and is like, no, sir, we're going to keep going in this direction. We're going to take this and actually roll with it and not get so stuck in the head. They're like, I'm in the gut triad and I'm going to go for it. And I think the last thing that solidifies her being an 8, and also that she has a 7 wing that she leans on more than her 9 wing, is the fact that she says whatever is on her mind and she doesn't apologize. There are several times in the movies that she'll say something and it's like, and people will be like, oh, that was a little, okay, I didn't like that. But she's like, well, too bad, because that's the truth. And that's just, it just is what it is. And that's something that I really value about people like that, because so many times it's easy to just be like, well, I just, will sit in the background, not say anything, or I know this isn't going to be well received because it's not a popular opinion, so I'm not going to say it. But we need those 8s who are going to come to the table and be like, look, I know you may not want to hear this. I know it may not be popular, but this is the honest truth and someone's got to say it. And so that's really the voice of reason that Mia has in her life, because everybody else has their own agendas, even though it's not out of like, it's not a wrong agenda, but they all kind of have their place in Mia's life as giving her advice on certain subjects. But Lily really doesn't have any stake in the game, She's just like, I'm just here to support you as your friends. I care about you and I want to tell you the truth. And like we see, Mia doesn't know that she said that to Lord Devereaux or Nicholas, whatever his name is. But she was like, I'm going to stick up for my friend anyway, because this dude is a loser and a poser. And so I'm going to say something about it. And so I don't know. I love Lily so much. And I actually gave her a tri type of an 8, 4, 6. And the reason I talked about the 8 and the 4 before, I think that's like really her thing. But the 6, I chose that because she's suspicious of people and she's suspicious of people's motives. And that's something that you're going to see from that type 6, who's again trying to test people and figure out, are you really being who you say you are? Or Are you being honest? Are you loyal? And if she feels at all like someone's not being honest, loyal, whatever, she will basically have your head. But of course, we love it. And then let's go ahead and talk about her brother Michael really quick, because obviously he's the love interest in the first movie. And he was so funny to me. I actually think he is the type 4. And I say that because he is so removed, I guess, or like withdrawn from situations, but yet he's still emotionally invested. And that's something that I feel like for him, when Mia kind of doesn't show as much interest in him once Josh enters the picture in that first movie, you can see that he just is like, okay, well, it just is what it is. And he just slowly backs away. And remember, 4s are part of that withdrawing stance. So we talked about the aggressive stance a minute ago. The withdrawing stance, when situations happen that, negatively affect them, I guess I should say, what they do is they just totally withdraw, same as the 5s and the 9s. They don't want to stay in a situation, get drained. And for the 4, it would be emotional drain. They don't want to stay there, get drained, and then feel like now all of this stuff is like wrapped up in this situation and I'm not me anymore. I don't have what I need. And I feel like for him, he's known her for so long and it's felt like this was my sister's best friend and I've kind of had a crush on her this whole time, but I wasn't going to do anything about it. Then he finally makes his move and it's like, oh, she ditched me. I think for the 4, that's kind of traumatic. I mean, it would be for anybody, but for them, they're like, I just put my heart out there and you just like cha-cha'd on it and left. And so for him, the fact that he was able to go through that and be like, you know what, it's fine, whatever. And then at the end of the movie, come back because he's like, she's truly sorry. And he could tell that it was genuine. Remember, 4s are so good at picking up if someone is actually being authentic and truly themselves in terms of their emotions. And so he could tell that that was the case. And that's why he went back to her and it was no problem. He's like, you know what? Whatever. It's okay. I forgive you. We're going to move past it because he's so good at knowing true intentions. And so that's where he was able to get over it. And I really do think he was also able to do that because he has a 5 wing. I think he's a 4 wing 5. And I think for him, he was able to logically look at it as well as not just emotional and say, I know who she is on the inside. And I know that she would never do something that was blatantly mean or nasty. And I know that she's been going through a lot. She was trying her best. And so I'm going to show up there for her as a friend. Oh my gosh. Can we talk about Lord Nicholas really quick? Since we're on the topic of love interests. So he was a really funny one for me because I knew right away that he was a type 3. And the reason I was able to figure that out is because he's so charming. He's very sly. He knows exactly what to do, what buttons to push, and basically how to get his desired outcome. Because remember, that type 3 is very goal oriented. And then not only that, but he's very witty and he's engaging. And the reason that he's like that is because he has that 3 in him. He's able to shape shift. He knows what needs to happen in a situation in order to get a desired result. And for him, he's really good at reading people. And that's why I think he has that 2 wing, because he's really able to figure out like, what is the essence of this person and how can I mold in order to get what I need to claim the crown, And so he's figuring it out and he's really good at picking out like, what is Mia's true desire here? He's very goal focused. And also, I think he feels very, because remember, 3s value loyalty. And I feel like for him, he's really doing all of this in order to please his uncle. And I think he's not so much caring about the crown himself, but I think he cares about what his uncle thinks of him and what his uncle wants. And so that's really the direction he's going. But I also think that he enjoys the chase. I think that he enjoys this mission of trying to get Mia to like him. And so that's what he really kind of focuses in on as he's doing this. I think for Mia, he kind of brings her out of her comfort zone a little bit more. And I think she leans on the fact that he's so good in social situations, whereas she might be a little bit more reserved. He gets her out of that. I think for her, more than anything, she looks at it as like, this is a perfect compliment and it fills me in where I may be lacking. And so I think if we were to see like a Princess Diaries 3, I would love to see how their relationship is going and actually see how they complement each other so well later on in life. Oh my gosh, Queen Clarice. I just love her. Is she not like the epitome of elegance? I mean, seriously, nothing she does is not exactly perfect. And that is why I typed her as a type 1. I think she's a 1 with a 2 wing, by the way, because everything she does is so principled and exacting. And she's really, really excellent at figuring out how to separate her emotions from things in order to do what's best for others. And of course, in her position, that's always been her focus. And she's had to really lay down whatever she wants in order to serve her people. And obviously, that's more of like part of her career, I guess. But the problem is her career is intermixed with her personal life. So she can't separate the two. She honestly is an incredible example of what a healthy type 1 looks like. And she is genuinely everything a leader should be and can be. And I know we talk a lot about type 1s on this podcast, and in different scenarios, there's some that have been extremely healthy and we love them. We just like chat them up. And then there have been some like this week's episode on the Maze Runner, where we see ones that are in not the best of places. But the great thing about Clarice is that she genuinely is the example of a beautiful, healthy, thriving type 1 who has found a way to use their type 1 qualities in service of others. And she's been able to figure out a balance because obviously type 1s can deal with perfectionism and wanting to hold themselves to such a high standard that they end up dealing with that inner critic all the time and they feel like they never measure up. However, Clarice has found a way to strike the perfect balance, and she really exemplifies being able to hold yourself to a high standard and hold others to a high standard, but you can't let that diminish when someone messes up. And we see time and time again with Mia where something will happen and Clarice is like, as the queen, can't really condone this, but as your grandma, I think you did great. And so she's excellent at just separating her job from her personal life when it comes to those she loves. And of course, we see that again with Joseph. And she is very type 2-ish with that 2 wing. She's able to serve others. She's able to lay down what she wants. She's able to constantly have that energy because remember, type 2s have the most energy of all the types on the Enneagram. And so we see that with her, even in her older age, she's still going, she's still loving life. And she also knows when her time is to step down. I think the one thing that 2s and 1s can struggle with is overextending themselves, and they can end up really running themselves into the ground because they're trying to do. But for her, she realizes when it's time for her to step down and let someone else take the leadership role. And she knows that she's trained Mia up to be the great leader that Genovia needs. And so she's actually able to step down with total peace and grace because she's like, I know that my job's done and I've done a good job. I've done the best job I can do. And so I can take a bow and leave this position and know that I've done all that I can do. And that is just, like I said, the perfect example for a type 1 of how to live your life. That's all I have to say. I like cannot rave about her enough. The reason I think also that she's so perfect for this role that she has is because I think her tri-type is a 1-5-3. She's definitely got that 5 down for sure because she looks at every move she makes as like a chess move. And so we can see that in the first movie with the trolley car that Mia like ends up running into. And she's able to get her out of going to jail because she's like, I know how to play this. And so again, that's a really good combination between that 3 and the 5 in her tri-type because the type 3 is good at just like elegantly moving through situations and kind of finessing it, whereas the 5 has got it so planned out that they're able to make a move and be confident in it because they've thought it through. So again, she's basically an anomaly and incredible and perfection in every sense of the word. But let's talk about our last character really quickly, Joseph. And that guy, he is awesome. I freaking love him. If you're going to have someone on your team, you want Joseph. And that is why I typed him as a 5-wing-6. That's why I think he and Clarice complement each other so well because they meet on that type 5. And for him, I chose that because he's very cerebral. You know what I mean? There's nothing that happens that he hasn't been thinking about the entire time. And even though he plays all of his emotions very close to the vest, he is thinking about what he wants and he does want to explore those emotions that he has for Clarice and actually make a move, but he also knows his place and he knows the right time to do it because he's like, yeah, this isn't the most optimal season to try and like make that happen. And so he waits and waits and waits and he bides his time and finally is able to say, let's bring this out of the dark. Like, I want to be with you. And so for him, he's very long suffering and he's able to serve Clarice, even though he has these feelings, because 5s are really great at compartmentalizing and figuring out when the best time is to exact a plan or, execute X, Y, and Z. And so he's been able to do that and it ends up working out for him. And that's why if a 5 tells you, hey, you really should blah, 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 you need to follow through with it because I'm telling you, they've thought it out. They've thought everything out. And if you follow their plan, more than likely it's going to work out great for you. And so that's again where he's so great on a security team because he senses danger coming. And that's where in the second movie, when the whole thing happens with the snake and Mia's horse, he ends up going to Nicholas's uncle and basically says, I know it was you. And if you do anything like that again, it's going to be game on. And that's where he's just really good at figuring out what needs to happen and how to do it and how to get to the result that he wants. And he's always thinking it out. He's always 10 steps ahead. And that's why he's been such a trusted member of the team for so long. And he's not only been a trusted member of the team, but he's been intertwined in the personal lives of Mia and Clarice because he's trustworthy. He's someone that is very calm and cool and collected. And you feel like I can go to him and I'm going to get solid advice or tips on whatever, and it's not going to come from an emotional place. It's not going to come from anyone's vested interests, I guess. And so anything that you get from him is just going to be 100% genuine, and that's why I think he's the perfect fit. All right, that's it for this episode. I really hope that you enjoyed, and be sure and check back on Tuesday for a brand new one, and follow along on Instagram for all the behind the scenes content and special behind the scenes photos for this episode. I found so many cool ones from Princess Diaries filming that you have to check out. Again, you can check that out on Instagram at Hey, it's Liv James. Oh, and let me remind you, if you're interested in checking out the video version of the podcast, you can find that on YouTube and Spotify. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.